Hello. Welcome to part 2 of programming in Java. In the last part, we went over how to install Eclipse, and we also talked about declarations. In this episode, we're going to talk about if-else statements. But first, we're going to go over the assignment from last episode. Jeez, can't talk. It was a pretty open-ended assignment. Basically, you just follow the steps. But I'm going to go over it with you, just in case. So if you don't remember from last time, or you haven't watched the last part, which you probably should if you don't know how to program in Java, you have to declare the integer, obviously, for 1a, or just part 1, and then a you change its value, and then b blah blah blah. It's pretty standard, but I'm just gonna. So I hope you all knew what to do, but I'm just gonna go over some nuances that I might have covered last episode, but I want to go over again. For example, this one right here. If you take an integer and divide it by another integer in Java, you get an integer, as you can see here. It'll actually cut off. It won't even read that. It'll just equal 1. This expression, you see num is equal to, let's see here, 4. 4/3 would be 1.3 repeating, right? In Java, it's 1 because I didn't divide by 0.0. So, that's fun. Doubles, I don't really want to go over anything there. Strings are pretty standard. Don't know why that's there. Okay. And then booleans, pretty standard. I think I included that too, just because I don't think I went over it in that episode about logic statements at all. Basically, you don't have to know too much, except that, like in that table, that and or two and symbols means that, say I have conditions, they both have to be true. For example, true and true will equal true. Obviously that won't work in Java, but if you had, say, false and true, that would equate to false. So it's pretty standard stuff. You could probably look it up on the internet. And if you have any more questions, that's why there's comments. Just, you can leave them all you need. Alright. Let's go on to this part of the series. This episode we're going to be going over if-else statements. So let's do that. But I want to make sure, I want to home this in too, how important it is when you're starting out to type in public static void main string. Well, I should have said parentheses, but I'm just so used to typing it because I've been programming for so long. String. You'll actually find out at some point that this actually means array, but you don't have to worry about for that for now. You can look it up if you want. That's why I say things early, so if you want to get ahead of the game, go right ahead. Well, I guess you probably could, because I'm probably going to be recording these in bulk, so I'll know about everything. You'll be more informed than I will, because I don't know, whatever. Anyway, if statements, pretty much the backbone of logic in really any programming languages. If-else statements. Basically, let's say I had a boolean. Ignore that notification. Come on. Say you had a boolean like boolean bool, I guess, equals true, we'll say. And if you had an if statement, for example, if bool. Now, and then here's one thing that I'm going to mention. I think a lot of you starting out will probably type if bool is equal to true, right? Makes sense. If this statement is true. The thing with booleans that's really nice actually is that you actually don't have to do that. Because if bool, you're basically just saying if true. So that works. Java's smart enough, and a lot of other programming languages can do that for you already, thankfully. So if bool, okay. Basically, this if statement will only run if this is true. So that's kind of a problem for us because you can't really test it. It's always going to be true. So we can do something a little more random, let's say. So if you took a sneak peek at the assignment, which maybe you did, maybe you didn't, you may have noticed that I used math.random. The math class is really just, come on, math.random. It's really just a way for you to use methods. Like, for example, some of you might be wondering, well, how do you get pi? Just type in math.pi, and there you go. Of course, I can't set a boolean equal to that, but you get the idea. Just know that I won't be going too in depth with these, because I mean, I know I made the assumption last video that some of you might not have ever programmed before, but people on your robotics team, or if you're not doing this for a robotics program, you're doing it just because you want to learn how to do Java, there's a lot of great resources online. I might leave a few of them in the description if you need more help with that, but I'm not going to go too far in depth with everything, just because, you know, I have limited time. But if you ever wanted to say, I want to generate a random value, like I don't want boolean to be always true. Okay, well, so math.random, it returns a double from between 0 and 1, not inclusive. It'll always be greater than 0, it'll always be less than 1. So if you want to change it, you have to modify it. Say for example, we want it to be between let's say 0 and 1, or sorry, 0 and 100. We just multiply it by 100, and we want to test. Okay, since it's a boolean, we got to use our handy dandy boolean logic, and we want that to be it's less than 50. And that will mean that if this is indeed less than 50, well, let's actually make it 0.0, just for, and also if we want it to be between 100, okay. Yeah, math.random's not the most fun to play around. Just when you're in robotics, you don't really use it at all, if like very rarely, so you don't have to worry about too much. But if statements and logic, oh yeah, that's a big part. So we just have that, so don't worry about that. Basically, it just means that it won't always be true, it won't always be false. So say we wanted to print out something. Let's say it'll print out hi if boolean is true, and else. An else command means that basically if true is basically what it wants. If that doesn't work out, it'll just go to the else statement. So you can put something else here. Okay, you do that, and then we just run it. And hope it doesn't crash. Okay, hi. Okay, hello, and you can see that it'll actually, it'll work between it. So it printed out hi and it printed out hello. So 2 different runs. So that means it's working. Okay, that's nice. But it's real. If else are really just used to test different conditions. You could also do else if, which works like if, but it means that, okay, if this other condition is true, for example, if bool and let's say I had a num. Let's say num equals 2. Num equals 2. And let's say you can actually use these little things here. They're actually pretty nice. Okay, so obviously that's not going to equate to true 5, but basically use if-else statements if you have other conditions you want to test. Like, for example, if this, and then else if, that same thing and something else. That's really all you use it for. And then else is just basically your default condition. Right? If nothing else works, then else will always run. And it's important to know that you don't always have to have an else or an else if. You can just have an if statement. If you're only testing for one condition and you don't want a default case, then you don't even have to have an else. That's pretty nice. I'm trying to think about what else I can go over with if-else statements. I mean, that's pretty much the basics of if-else. They're pretty standard tools for testing logic. Can't think of anything else to say. I mean, saying a lot. So basically in robotics you'll just be using these. Will be a lot, but I mean there's other things you use a lot too in robotics that we haven't gotten into and won't get into for a while now. But okay, if else, those are pretty standard. Alrighty. This isn't going to be in the assignment, but I want to go over it and just mention it. Switch cases. A switch case is really just so for example, if I had, let me actually do this. So let's say I have an integer called num, and its value is equal to 0. Okay, so let's say I had, okay, so this doesn't help, but oh, right, okay, yeah, this one's a little weird. So you use brackets instead. Okay, don't worry about that. I'm being dumb. Switch num. Okay. When a switch case runs through, it basically means that, say, so for currently num is equal to 0. Let's say, okay, so if num is equal to 0, like which is it is, case 0, that's what it'll go through because num is 0. We can make it say do anything we really want. It's basically like an if-else statement, but their uses are a lot more limited because you can't use booleans with them like I demonstrated. So yeah, and then you can do an infinite series of cases really, and if you ever need to repeat cases, you can also just do this, for example. Oh, because I typed it wrong. Case 1. So if you have multiple cases that lead to the same answer, then you can just do that. And whenever you're done with what code you want to run in a switch case, you type in break. Basically means that, and you can do it with if statements too. It basically means that once you've reached this point, I want you to break out of the loop, or in this case, not a loop, an if statement or a switch case. And I mean, yeah, you know, it's useful for when you want to get out of code and you don't want it to run anymore. And that's about it. And then switch cases themselves have, like I said, have very limited uses. So you're just gonna have to hope that when you're using them, they are useful. Let's see here. What else could I go over? Switch cases won't be in the assignment, so don't worry about those. Okay. If you can also use, like I said, I just gave an example of just a boolean, but you can test logic. So for example, if let's say 8 equals 7 plus 1, we know that it'll equate to true, as it tells us, comparing identical expressions, right? Because 8 is 7 plus 1. That's the nice thing about Eclipse, is that it just tells you that. But if you have variables that are, you know, variable and not constants, then it won't give you that. But basically, you can just really test anything in the if statement. Shoot. Trying to think of what else to teach you guys. I'm not, as you can tell, I'm probably not good at these things. Let me just look at the if else statement, see if there's anything else I can. No, I think that's pretty much it. Alrighty then. Well, no, I'm not going to end it here, obviously. Let's see what else we could do with if statements. So probably the biggest thing that early programmers want to do is make their own video games. And a lot of them use if statements because, well, you can test for something. So for example, if oh, I know what I can teach you. Okay. This is never going to be used in robotics, probably ever. At least I haven't used it. A scanner. I haven't taught you this yet, and you probably won't use it too much, like I just said. But a scanner lets you take in inputs. So, for example, if I have a scanner, scan equals new scanner. You'll find out later in this tutorial series that new has something to do with classes and objects. But for now, you don't have to worry about that. Just know if you ever want to make a scanner, you type in scanner, whatever you want to call it, equals new scanner system dot in semicolon, and you'll see, oh, these have color, but there's a red underline. You must have typed something in wrong. No, you have to import a class. Java is nice enough to provide tools for you to use if you ever want to, do more complicated stuff, and the scanner is one of them. So I can demonstrate for you. Let's say I ask a question. Yes, I know this isn't going to be in the assignment either, so don't worry about it because it's not all too useful. But I feel as if I should teach it to you just so that you have it in your repertoire in case you ever do have to use it. I mean, it's not that useful for robotics, but if you want to do your own programming, you can totally do that. So we're going to print out I don't know why I did that. Okay, what's your name? Question mark. Pretty standard stuff. If you want to ask or like have a user input something, first off, you probably want to store that information, so you want to declare the respective data type. So string name equals, okay, what do we do next? The name of the scanner you created, dot, and hope it works. Okay, that's weird. What? Oh, okay. Yeah, don't do what I did. For now, you just make sure you put everything in the main method. I guess it's kind of a good thing I did that by accident, because you need to make sure you do that. Otherwise, it'll not be fun for now. So what you want to do, since you're looking for their name, well, we probably should, since you want their full name, you want to do next line. Scan.next line. Okay. And we'll print system.out.print line dot print line, and we'll say hello plus their name. Right? Pretty standard, I don't know, program maybe, video game, whatever. Not really a video game, but if this could be the basic of, or the base of really any text adventure game, if you really wanted to make one, just know that they're really tedious to make, especially because I haven't really taught you how to make it in separate classes, stuff like that, but don't worry about that for now. We're going to run this. What's your name? Okay, and it'll let you type it in. My name is Michael. Hello, Michael. And it's pretty good about this stuff, and it works, so that's pretty cool. Let's see here. Yeah, you can tell I'm blanking a lot. Let's see here. So back to if statements. Yes, I know I keep coming back to them, but see if I can distract you and see if you can still remember basically everything. Obviously, you can tell this order matters with these. You can't have an if else and then an else if. That doesn't work. You have to have an else if has to come before an else. Kind of makes sense. Your default condition is the last one that's supposed to run through, and then your if statement has to have something to test. So let's just say true. If true, then blah blah. I don't know why it's giving me that error. Okay, don't worry about that. Let's see here. Okay, I guess I could go over formatting. Typically with if statements, most Java programmers would do this. You type in, you hit enter, obviously, to get your bracket, and then instead of doing your yeah, I should probably bring this up to mention. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, like the last video, but some of you who are experienced programmers may notice that my formatting isn't actually what most consider normal. Usually for formatting in Java, there's two kinds of format styles. It's same line, which is what I use, and then next line, which would be like this, like that. basically so that, I mean, it looks a lot better, I'll be honest. I'm just so used to the same line though. So I probably should have mentioned that. You can either style is fine for robotics, preferably this one just because it's honestly a lot easier to read. So that's probably why my team hates me. No, they don't. But at least I hope not. It doesn't really matter too much what style you use because they're both readable. But this one just makes more sense to really everyone. So if you can, try to use it. And then with if statements, so usually people will type, at least as far as I've seen it, you type your else or else if on the same line as the ending bracket for your if. So like here. And then you just do that. Right? You don't always have to do that though. You can just do it like that. And it works just as well. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. As long as your code looks organized, then you're fine. One thing that I'll mention for robotics that's pretty important is if you know what an if statement does, then please comment what it does. For example, you could say the if statement below does it checks to see if this works or whatever. But yeah, it's just yeah, I can speak. So if statements, you should also know that they're, like I said, the backbone. You'll be using them a lot, trust me. If statements, and then when we get into the next episode, for loops. But I think that's all we need for this episode. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and the assignment will be in the description. I didn't mention that last time. I'll try to get better at doing that, but assignment will be in the description, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.